go over the agenda quickly. So first, we're going to review the comments we received based on the changes we had made for meeting number 3. Have a discussion about that. We have a few questions for all of you. And then we're going to open it up to just a discussion of the rules as a whole. And I would also love to get your input on the statement of need and fiscal impact. I shared a blank version of that template, hoping that we could just discuss it and I could get your insights, and then a more complete draft will be available during the rulemaking hearing. We'll also, of course, have time for public comments and a slide on next steps with some due dates. Any questions before we get going? Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is the first of 2 slides about themes from the comments we received from RAC number 3. So I've kind of grouped these, the ones on this slide, into, questions around clarity on certain provisions. So the first one was whether our use of NDC referred to NDC 9 or 11. And just in terms of our response it's NDC 11. DPT reporting is always per package NDC. And Sophie, I'm not sure if you have anything else you'd like to share about that from the kind of program perspective and administrative perspective.
Just a reminder, that when they switch to the NDC 12 format and things like that too, we're still talking about the package NDC, regardless of how many numbers are in it.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments about that? Feel free to raise your hand or just come off mute. Going on to the, Daria, did you come off mute?
Appreciate the clarification, as we noted in the letter. It's for administratively burdensome, but do just wanted.
Thanks, Daria. Just so you know, you are a little bit quiet and maybe cut out at the end. But what I heard you say was that you appreciated the clarification, but still want it known that this is administratively burdensome for you. Is that right? And are other people having a hard time hearing? Okay. Thank you. Okay. So moving to the next bullet, there were some comments around, we had in the original, I can't remember, I think it was in meeting number 1, we had proposed removing good faith effort completely from the rule. And, due to some comments, we added that back in, but modified it just slightly to be act in good faith. And there were some concerns about what that might mean administratively, and we are not seeing this as a compliance shift at all. We are seeing this change in language as being more clear and being more consistent with current statute. So we're really, not seeing that there would be any sort of meaningful change in compliance with this language change.
Thanks, Lily. I want to bring in my to speak to our letter.
Yeah, thank you, Daria. My name is Merlin Brittenham. Happy to join with you all today on behalf of Pharma. Thank you for laying out your position on that provision. I think, suffice to say, from our perspective, this does seem like a substantive change, even if it's a small one. It could impact both the compliance with the regulation and also the program's interpretation of its own regulations. Because this affects a change from the prior standard, we would ask that the program provide a reasoned explanation for why it's making this change beyond just sort of clarifying and what its specific intent is. And without a specific reason for making this change, we feel the prior standard should remain in place.
Thank you, Merlin. Appreciate that context. Are there other questions or thoughts about this change? Okay. So the next two items I do have other slides on. So the inclusion of virtual manufacturers, we have made some changes to hopefully clarify that our intent is to continue including the virtual manufacturers, and we can go over that. And then in terms of trade secret requirements, we also made some hopefully clarifying changes. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide so we can talk about the virtual manufacturers. So there were some really helpful comments, kind of outlining the exact role of virtual manufacturers and reiterating how they never actually touch a drug. And so what we did was to try to make it really clear that virtual manufacturers are included is to move some of that language in C up to B, so that we're being clear that the manufacturing is either directly or indirectly done. So, Lynetta, I believe this was your comment, which was really helpful. Do you have any, or does anybody, of course, have any thoughts on whether this is helpful or not?
Hi, everyone. No, I do think this this does help because that is a lot of times what is asked by manufacturers if they have a contractual arrangement where they are a virtual manufacturer, but directly or indirectly through contracts with other entities, I think does provide clarity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments from other RAC members on this item?
This is Eric Chung, representing Purus Pharmaceuticals. Just wanted to reiterate what Lynetta said. That's helpful for us as well. Thank you.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thanks, Eric. Other comments on this item? Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And this is you'll see a lot more yellow. So a lot more changed language from the last version. And we got, again, some very helpful comments about how, and I think this was a little bit of, my fault in being able to read, my own track changes. But so really wanting this to be clear. So we revamped it a little bit. Personally, I don't think the content is changed. We just think it is said in a much more clear, straightforward way. So yeah, go ahead. I think somebody was wanting to comment. If there was someone who is wanting to comment, we can't hear you.
Yes, this is Daria from Pharma. I want to ask Merlin.
Sorry, what was that, Daria?
I'd like to
Daria,
have,
I think it's
Merlin
deferring
speak
to
okay.
me to speak to this provision again. Thank you. First of all, we recognize the deletion of the civil penalty provision in this version. Nevertheless, we remain concerned. We reiterate our prior comments regarding the lack of a mechanism for allowing pre-release review of information before it's released. But primarily today, we wanted to address the fact that as I'm sure you're aware, the U.S. District Court for the District of Oregon recently issued a judgment saying that the exercise of the public interest exception works a regulatory taking of manufacturer's property. That was, of course, in Pharma v. Stolfi. In order to align with the court's ruling and to prevent any sort of uncompensated or unconstitutional taking of private property, we would ask that the department accordingly delete the public interest exception requirement under Romanet 5 in this provision.
Thank you for that comment. And Daria, it has been, was that in your comment letter?
It's not something we've addressed previously, but in this case, because we know it's in the pre-existing regulations, and in this case, we understand that you're using this opportunity to sort of reorganize and maybe streamline the trade secret provision. But given the recent holding in that case, in the process of reorganizing this provision, we ask that you consider removing the public interest exception there.
I see. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And I
And we
Oh.
Just to clarify real quick, I can state that we have not used it in practice, nor do we plan to. So, but I don't know that it will probably remain there, but we have not used it, just to let you know.
Go ahead, Daria. It looked like you were going
Thank
to
you.
say something.
I was just going to say that we will put that. Sorry, I'm getting feedback.
There are two of you.
Yeah, I don't know why. I will put that in our next letter. Sorry. I'm gonna log off and log back in and try to fix it.
Okay. Thank you. But I did get that it'll be in your next letter. Thank you. Were there other folks who wanted to comment on this kind of restructuring?
Test.
And I think too, just because we took out any specific reference to civil penalties does not mean it would not apply.
That actually,
based on the other laws already in place, but
thanks for mentioning that, Sophie. That's actually in a different section.
Oh, okay, maybe it's a different one that I was thinking.
So I wasn't sure. I kind of glossed over
clarify.
that.
We still have it
So
one
we
way or
will,
the other. Okay.
yeah, we'll talk about that in a different portion. Were there other folks who wanted to comment on this, hopefully clarifying reorganization? All right, let's go ahead and go to the next slide, which is kind of the next tranche of themes from comment letters. And this was really about alignment with statutory requirements. So the first topic was about manufacturer certification of accurate information. And I think that's what the prior comments were referring to. And we'll have a specific slide to discuss that. So we do have some draft language changes. There are also some comments around draft language regarding marketing costs and pricing methodology. And you will have noted that in our draft rules for this meeting, we did not make any changes. And that's because we still have ongoing internal discussion on that. So, that's not to say we won't make any changes, but that's just something we are still discussing. And then lastly, about the independent patient assistance programs, we have a few questions for you all on that to hopefully clarify. And so there's another slide on that. So let's go ahead and first go to the next slide. So I believe, Merlin, this is what you were referring to. Okay, so information to be claimed to be trade secret. So we removed this so I know that the certification is new, and we removed the portion explicitly stating that it was subject to civil penalties. And to be clear, we think of the certification process as an administrative process to help ensure filers know and understand the requirements. And we do believe that to be subject to civil penalties under the statute. The reason why we removed that here is because there are, for nearly every other piece of information that is referenced in rule, we do not explicitly state that it's subject to civil penalties. So we're just trying to be more consistent with our prior rulemaking. I guess I'll leave it there and open it up to thoughts or questions from RAC members.
And I'll state real quick too, just to give you an idea of one of the reasons we would like we wanted the certifying language in here is we get a lot of trade secret claims that are not do not appear that they have been well thought out. There are information published on a website, information publicly available. Information published in SEC records, information published even on their own website, different things that are claimed as trade secret. And so we think it's important for those submitting these claims to be cognizant of what they're submitting.
Thanks, Sophie. Let's go ahead and open it up to RAC members. Their questions or thoughts about this. Okay.
I'm sorry. I think unless my colleague Daria has more thoughts, I think this is something we'll likely address in our written comments.
Great. Okay. Just pausing to see if other people are thinking about it or working on getting off mute. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. So sorry, if you see me looking, it's because I couldn't find my glasses, and so I'm looking at my bigger screen. um, so this change around the the uh the section really is, we had intended for there to be a may, and it just was not there. So really trying to be clear that these are just ideas of potential factors. Maybe none of these would be factors. Maybe all of them would be factors. Maybe there would be things that we didn't list. So trying to make this very clear that these are optional factors. And then the other part, in A, that is highlighted was just trying to, again, streamline that a little bit. And then there was another comment asking about under G what other costs might be. And, these are things that we're not necessarily aware of. Like, we don't know what we don't know. So this could be things like inflation, like new federal laws, or overhead cost increases, supply chain issues, things like that.
Yeah.
So again, we're not looking for something specific. We just know there are things we probably don't know about and wanted to be able to be inclusive of that. Any questions on this change or comments?
And hopefully this is helpful to just help explain what we're trying to ask, the types of factors that we're looking for in case they apply to the situation.
Exactly.
Thank you for the clarification. Yeah, I do think that is helpful information to share. So these are they may be factors, or they may not necessarily be factors. So if they're not necessarily factors, you wouldn't say that they would have to supply these things. So these are really recommendations, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Options.
ideas.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they're
Right.
options. Yeah. Mhm.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Thank you.
Good. Good. Other comments on this portion? Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So this was about the patient assistance program. So there were some comments about not wanting to include what we had termed as independent patient assistance programs. And we're really trying to get at the root of, what the concerns might be. So the first portion on this slide, the first section of text is from statute. And what it's saying is, a patient assistant program means a program that a manufacturer offers to the general public. And our plain language read of offer is that statute is really quite expansive on what a patient assistance program could be. And it's not limited to programs that a manufacturer actually administers themselves. So what we're thinking is that perhaps the concern is really around the language, excuse me, independent, which is in the rule, and that's the second section of language. And so we would really welcome your feedback if there is kind of more appropriate language than independent on how to describe these other types of patient assistance programs. We're really, we're looking for alternatives to express the idea of when an affiliate administers the program. So we welcome your ideas and understand that, you've had a week or so to look at this and we're just discussing it now. So if you know, it's better to address these in your next set of comments. We understand that. Oh. Multiple Darias are trying to get on again.
She's trying to get her audio fixed.
Yeah.
Frustrating. And just to clarify too, if there's something we're not understanding about how programs the manufacturer is not administering directly are run, or why there would be any issues getting information from somebody you've hired to run a program for you, that's trying to understand that. And especially if there's ever any legislation regarding separate reporting of patient assistance programs in the future or things like that. So,
yeah. Daria, do you want to try again? Is there just one of you? Oh, we can't hear you at all now.
You might have to join by phone again.
Test.
So frustrating.
We can hear that.
Oh,
Yay.
hey. It came through finally.
Yes, we will definitely address by letter and pull up some language. This was an issue that was an issue when these regs were first started. So I'll have to go back to look at, but there are distinctions between a like a contracted entity that runs a program for a manufacturer and an independent patient assistance program that has no affiliation with the manufacturer, and the manufacturer would not have the kind of information that you're looking at.
And can you give me an example of that? Because I wasn't aware that there would be something that would be considered a patient assistance program that's not affiliated with the manufacturer.
Yes, they are quite frequent. They are independent nonprofits that offer patient assistance that are not specific to a drug. They are disease.
So they cover a variety of drugs, and
Right,
some might happen to be that manufacturer's drug.
Yes, and there is, I believe, IRS statute or guidance that specifies what those are, and we will bring that up again. I'm happy to put more in our letter on that.
Yeah, so maybe if there's a name or terminology we could use to clarify, because we would be expecting information that the manufacturer is hiring someone to do something in their stead, then that's completely different than some independent group you have no
right. There are
over.
many patient assistance programs that are have no information sharing with the manufacturer. So they would not be able to
use
report
private funding or something.
Yeah, I'll get our experts to.
I don't know how they get their money, so
in the right words. Yes.
Yeah. So, as part of that comment, in addition to understanding the different types of programs, I think suggestions around language that you think would capture your idea would be really helpful too, Daria. So let me open it up to other people to see if you do have similar concerns or questions or ideas about alternative language that you're ready to talk about now. Okay, not hearing anything. This is the end of our kind of recap of the comments from the last meeting. And so I want to just pause to see if we have missed anything that people did comment on, if we didn't address any of those issues.
Yes, we did have one more question. There was, we had asked for clarification about the sort of automatic extension when manufacturer needs an extension, and there was language. And then it looks like that was removed from this draft.
Can you be more explicit about?
It was in the first draft, Sophie had said that it was the intention to make it an automatic extension. And then in the second draft, there was language clarifying that it would be.
Yeah.
That it looks like that came out. I don't know if that was intentional.
Did it actually come out, or did it, because I removed all of the highlights for things that weren't new.
Which rule is it? I can't remember where that is.
I believe that's in section 535, subsection 4.
Can you scroll down a little bit more, Sophie? I don't believe if that was removed, I don't believe that was intentional.
Yeah, I can't remember what our
Let
other
me
wording looked
look
like
at
when I was
that.
looking at it.
And I can respond back to the rack. Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember what exactly how we had it worded, so yeah.
I'll look back at hopefully there's not a version control issue on my side, but I don't think that was intentional, Daria. Yeah. Other kind of holistic comments or thoughts? Okay, so the next slide is just things that you want to bring up about the rules in general that maybe you haven't brought up yet or that you're newly thinking about with the last version. And again, this won't be your last chance. You know, there will still be the official hearing and an opportunity to provide comments and an opportunity to provide RAC comments after this meeting. But just wanted to hold this space for people. Sophie, we are still looking at the rules. Okay.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if somebody wanted to do
Oh,
something, or
thanks.
do
Yeah.
you have more slides on here that I
Nope,
need to
not
switch
more
to?
slides on that. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if anybody wanted to discuss anything, I could bring it up.
Yeah, good idea. Okay, not hearing anything. You all know I like to leave long pauses. Is going to what we call the sniffy, the statement of need and fiscal impact. So hopefully folks had a chance to glance at that template. And I would really like to open it up especially to hear your insights about how adoption of these rules, and again, or not, maybe not again, what this is about, because we're revising existing rules, it really is about the changes. So it's not about the impact of the underlying rules, it's about the impact of the changes to those rules. So how those changes might affect equity in Oregon, particularly who that might impact and how it might impact one group differently than other groups. So I'd love to get folks' insight on that. Any insights on that particularly? Seeing a shake from Daria, nobody else coming off mute. What about fiscal and economic impact, particularly for small businesses? And in Oregon, small business is less than 50. But welcome kind of any thoughts about that. Yeah, go ahead. Are there any other kind of comments or questions or insights around the sniffy in general?
You.
Heard someone come off mute, but maybe that was just for a by accident. Oh, Lynetta's okay. Lynetta's audio is not working right now either. So please do feel free to add comments about this. Thanks, Eric, for acknowledging you don't have comments. In a comment letter as well. You want to give have a little more time to think about that. Okay, let's go ahead and go to public comment. And I'd love to open it up to see if anyone has public comment at this time. Feel free to raise your hand or put your name in the chat and we can call on you or come off mute. I'm not seeing anyone for public comment. Are you, Sophie? Just want to be extra sure. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide on next steps. So these have some dates. So you'll see that, so you do have the opportunity to provide written comments about what we talked about today and this version of the rules. And I've given you until December 11th, given that next week is a holiday week, and hopefully a lot of you will be taking vacation. And then after that, February 1st will be the notice of proposed rulemaking that will be published. And our hearing will be on February 24th. Public comments due from that hearing on March 3rd, and then the permanent rulemaking will be filed on March 25th. So my apologies to all of us, me included, that some of this will happen during session. Hopefully that won't be too onerous for anybody, especially with the rulemaking hearing timing. Are there any questions about these next steps?
Just to let you know, some of this delay is just, with the holidays and everything else coming up.
Yeah.
A lot of year-end rules that are required, whereas this one isn't required to be specific. So we will plan to have it effective April 1.
Yeah. 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 And with adding this fourth RAC meeting, which, I think was a good idea to push our timeline back a little bit. So
Yeah. The big change there will be the new drug report amount change.
All right, if there are no questions about that, another short meeting, and just want to really thank folks for participating in our RAC. It has been very, very helpful for us in understanding, how this impacts you all, and just a lot of the nuances that we don't have insights into. So really appreciate everybody's time and efforts into this, and we'll look forward to hopefully seeing most of you at the hearing in February, and looking forward to your comments before that too. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Lily.